Hi, I'm Gina Baird, and I'm going to be talking about our TED Talk that we watched this week on intellectual property. Intellectual property consists of the fruits of one's mind. The primary forms of protected intellectual property are trademarks, copyrights, patents, and trade secrets. I agree with David Miranda in this TED Talk because back in the 18th century, there were blacksmiths, there were local merchants, and local bars. And at that time, no one needed to worry about intellectual properties. If the blacksmith excelled at his profession, he would have customers that may come from other towns just for his services. The Industrial Revolution began in the 18th century when agricultural societies became more industrialized and urban. The Transcontinental Railroad, the cotton gin, electricity, and other inventions permanently changed our society. The waterways gave way for transporting and importing of goods. At this time, there was not such a high demand for intellectual properties. Although there were some needs for patents and copyrights, there was not nearly the number that is needed in today's market. As businesses and people have become more creative and more inventive, the more need there is for intellectual property protection laws. Businesses used to only rely on the region that their business was set up in to do business. As technology and information has driven our society, the more need there is for intellectual properties. Patents are good for 20 years as long as the maintenance fees are paid. Design patents are good for 14 years from the date of filing. Patents protect an invention from being made, sold, or used by others for a certain period of time. There's three different types of patents in the United States. Utilities patents, and these patents protect inventions that have a specific function, including things like chemicals, machines, and technology. Enjoy the ownership rights of your copyright. Your copyright affords you the exclusive right to make copies of your protected work, sell it, and distribute it. Your copyright also allows you to create adaptations or derivative pieces from your work, perform your work, for example, like in a play, and display your work in public. The term of the copyright for a particular work depends on several factors, including whether it has been published, and if so, the date of the first publication. As a general rule, for works created after January 1st, 1978, copyright protection lasts for the life of the author, plus an additional 70 years. The license allows you to use that song in another form of creation, such as in a video or in an ad, a radio spot, a video game, or an app, for example. Obtaining the copyrights will allow you to get all the rights to that work. It will become your entire property and all subsequent benefits arising from it. Copyrights can be sold as long as the rightful owner is selling those copyrights. In February of 1963, exactly 1 year before the Beatles appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show and Beatlemania swept the world, manager Brian Epstein suggested that John Lennon and Paul McCartney should form a company to protect their publishing rights. In February 1963, Dick James assisted the 23-year-old John Lennon and 21-year-old McCartney in forming a company, what was called Northern Songs. Northern Songs would be 50% owned by Dick James and his partner Charles Silver. 10% would be owned by Brian Epstein, 20% would be owned by Lennon, and the other 20% owned by McCartney. Years later, McCartney would explain that they were just too young and naive to know that this was a terrible deal. They never even read the contract. Incredibly, McCartney also admitted that neither he nor John Lennon ever actually met Charles Silver. Northern Songs now own the copyright to 56 Beatle compositions and required that Lennon and McCartney produce a minimum of 6 new tracks per year until 1973. In August of 1967, after Brian Epstein died of a drug overdose, Lennon and McCartney tried unsuccessfully to wrestle control of their songs away from Dick James and Charles Silver. James and Silver were so offended by the attempted coup that they sold their entire stake to a company called ATV Music Publishing for $2.5 million. That's $17 million in today's dollars. Ownership of the Beatles catalog would remain unchanged from 1969 to 1981, when ATV was sold to an Australian business tycoon by the name of Robert Holmes à Court. In 1984, Holmes à Court sold his rights to the Beatles catalog to Michael Jackson. With our society being driven by information and technology, there is a greater need to have intellectual properties protected by patents, copyrights, trademarks, and trade secrets. Now more than ever, there's a need for intellectual properties so people do not capitalize on other people's ideas. With the rise of the internet and with social media nowadays, I guess a lot of intellectual properties can be stolen. So I do agree with this TED Talk that there do need to be stricter laws when it comes to dealing with intellectual properties and patents. That's my reflection video. Thank you very much.